Kristi Gustafson Barlette with Times Union and TimesUnion.com. And welcome to 20 Things Plus, where we catch up with somebody previously featured on the Times Union's 20 Things You Don't Know About Me. Today, we will be joined by Paul Fahey. And Paul is the Vice President at Overit in downtown Albany, and that is a marketing and advertising firm. Hi, Paul.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on. Thanks for having me on the show.
So we're going to go over, you're going to update a couple of your original 20 things. You'll introduce us to a few new things, and then we'll play a little game at the end. So
looking forward to it.
Let's start with the first one. It's about food. And of course, we all like to talk about food. I remember you saying originally you and your wife were foodies. You like to dine out a lot. How have you kind of been satisfying that foodie craving during the pandemic?
Yeah, it seems like, judging by everybody's Instagram posts, everybody learned to cook bread or bake bread and started cooking at home a lot. We certainly try to do takeout as much as we can. I think it's important to support all the restaurants as much as possible. But it has been a lot of fun. I mean, just spending time together, doing things that we wouldn't have spent so much time doing before. So cooking as often as we could, we're trying to get inspired by the restaurants that we love. So looking at lobster bisque from our friends at Plum. My daughter actually just rolled sushi over the weekend for us. And I've been trying to cook shakshuka. I use it as a breakfast dish, but it's a lot of like stewed tomatoes and a lot of great spices, inspired from Tara's Kitchen. And then you're supposed to poach eggs and then put it into the broiler. I always overcook the eggs, but it's just one of those things that's been fun to learn to perfect, I guess, as we're going through this. And I think comfort foods more than anything. It just seems like, everybody's craving mac and cheese and shepherd's pie and, those things that you enjoyed when you were a kid, I guess.
I know you said you're still working on perfecting the eggs in that dish that I'm not going to try to pronounce because I will mispronounce it. But over the last, let's say, 8 or 9 months of cooking with Kelly, have you had any epic fails or something that you just thought, all right, that has to go in the garbage. We can't even eat it?
No, that's a great question. You know what it is? So I'm at the point right now where I've been cooking a lot, really inspired by some great family recipes. And I think I've got it down pat that I don't need to read the recipe again. And I end up putting in like just too much spices, or the spices are imbalanced or whatever. And then it becomes a game of like, remember WGY's What's Cooking Contest?
Oh, yes.
And so then I'm like, well, what did I just do with a quarter cup of cumin or something like that? So I think more than that, it's just been something that's been overspiced or underspiced. So.
I was going to say, unless you're making a really large quantity, a quarter cup of cumin would be a lot of cumin.
Yeah, we're not using that much, but yeah, chili for the entire neighborhood, I guess.
Exactly. Okay, great. Now we're going to move on to, I know you're big into travel. And of course, that's another thing that has been curbed for many of us during the pandemic. But also your original 20 Things was back in 2019. So there was time in there where you could do some traveling. What have you done?
Yeah, so added a few countries to the list. The fall of last year, so the fall of 19, I had a chance to work with and lead a trade delegation from the capital region to the Emirates, the United Arab Emirates. And that was fascinating. It was really neat to grab together a group of elected officials and business leaders and education leaders to really go over and explore the opportunities that were there for trade relationships. The capital region in particular enjoys a really robust relationship with global foundries. They have significant partners in the Emirates. So we were looking to see if we could build on that. And that was my first time in that neck of the woods. And that was fascinating. I really enjoyed the people, the culture. It was the year of tolerance. So that was a lot of fun. Fast forward to the end of February of last year, as my bride, Kelly, and I were in Italy. We're news junkies. And so we're hearing about this, something's happening in China and something's happening in Milan. Words like COVID and coronavirus and whatever. And it wasn't until we left, it was the last week of February, we were on our way out. And as we cut through the airport, all of a sudden there are what was really remarkable at the time, temperature screenings and people wearing PPE. And it was really like, wait, what's going on here? Like, what's happening? And I feel like we were the last people out of the country, almost like that fall of Saigon with the helicopter on the roof. And we're just kind of scrambling to get out the door. And that was it. So that was, done. That was all the travel we've really done, and largely trying to spend as much time as possible kind of rediscovering the capital region. going on hikes in Thatcher Park and People's Island, and just trying to, rediscover the backyard that we may have overlooked.
I was going to say that you've been in the capital region. Were you born here, or at the very least, you've been a longtime resident, right?
Born and raised. It's strange. My children graduated from the same high school I went to. We're all Shaker grads, so that's just sort of weird, I guess. But yeah, and Kelly's from Cohoes, so I think I'm going to die in this town, I'm sure.
Well, so what is something that you discovered in your travels around the capital region that you thought, oh my gosh, I never realized that existed basically in my backyard, and what an awesome discovery?
I never really spent a lot of time at People's Island before, but earlier in the pandemic in the spring, we went over and I had no idea that there were bald eagle nests there. And so we were walking around this one part of the path. People may be familiar with it. And there was a cliff, and there's a whole group of people standing over the cliff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, somebody fell over. I bet they're staring, I bet they're looking for the body. And all of a sudden I'm like, what's going on? What just happened? And people are like, there's, eagles nesting over there. I was like, oh my gosh, that's wonderful. So that was something I never even knew. I knew that they were nesting in the along the river, but never actually just saw them right there. So that was fascinating.
It's nice there too. There's the waterfalls there to look at, and then there's also, you can rent kayaks during the nice weather. And I do feel like I agree with you. That's a hidden gem. And if your wife is from Cohoes, I'm surprised you haven't been introduced to that sooner, because
it's one of those things, and I really feel like the falls in Cohoes are just this overlooked just destination. I don't think people even spend as much time looking at it. I know the former mayor, and I think Assemblyman McDonald, helped to put in a small little park and walkway that brought people out there, so you could see it there. And as a recreational pilot, anytime I'm picking friends up for just sort of let's look at the capital region and go see our home and all those kind of things, they always remark about the falls, just how magnificent it is. We're not buzzing it or anything like that, but even from only 1,000 or 1,500 feet up, it's really just beautiful, and it's right here in our own backyard.
Very cool. All right, now we're going to learn a couple of new things about you, and the first one actually is kind of a version of travel, but a little bit different with your son. What happened there?
Right. So our son is Marine Corps. He's in training. And earlier this year, he was stationed in North Carolina. So as part of his sort of air crewman training, he was in North Carolina. He was getting transferred to Little Rock. And he has a car, but he's 19, and it's a 1,200-mile drive. And we were like, gosh, I don't really feel good about that. I'd love to trade off some driving. And what a perfect opportunity to spend time with him. We really don't get to, because he's been in training over the last couple of years for the most part. So I flew down to Raleigh, North Carolina. He drove to pick me up, and we just had a great 3 days of driving across that part of the world. And I'd been to most of those states or passed through or whatever, but really never, saw them sort of at the ground level. We remarked that we saw our first cotton field. I'm driving along, I'm like, what is that? And it's sort of exactly what you would picture, very salt and pepper looking. And I was like, oh, that's a cotton field. I'm like, never saw one before. I was hosting webinars from hotel rooms, as we were going through. We got to go to a lot of great food destinations that were in, let's say we stopped in Nashville, and we were in Memphis, and then ultimately into Little Rock. So that was probably the most travel I've done since March 12th. When did everything shut down?
Yeah, right around St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 18th, something like that. Do you and your son have similar tastes in music or podcasts, or was it all conversation the whole time on that car ride?
It was a lot of conversation, different tastes in music, but it was kind of neat just to hear something. He's like, oh, hey, listen to this, and here's why I like it. We love the same podcast. A lot of the stuff you should know, just sort of the infotainment kind of podcasts were fun. But yeah, we filled the car with conversation.
Very cool. All right. Now, the next one, and I love this. I feel like this should have been the third one, because this is just so sweet. You surprised your wife, right? And with your son. How did that go? It was one of those videos that you see online and you're just like, oh, you tear up when you see it.
Yeah, I'm not a crier, but those welcome home videos are just remarkable. And he hadn't been stationed overseas, thankfully, and he wasn't in a war zone, thankfully. But I think as people even thank us or thank him for his service and the sacrifice, it's even just the little things that, Mom, Kelly, has not been with her son or seen her son for months and months on end. much different from when your kid goes off to college. You know, you'll still see them, you'll stay in touch, they'll come home for holidays, but you know, we've gone months and months without seeing him. So he was originally planning on coming home, and maybe the plans changed. And I was like, hey, listen, let's create, look, you're a soldier, you're well trained now. Let's create Operation Surprise Mom. So we did, and we pulled it off. And I can't, you know, Kelly and I, obviously we've been in quarantine together. We have shared, you know, bank accounts. There's no way of getting anything past her. So I was so surprised that we were able to book his flight, that I picked him up from the airport, snuck him in, and we were in the backyard. So there's a post on our Facebook account, and it was just of him, you know, kind of coming around the corner. So we're like, hey, Kel, you know, I need you in the backyard for a second. And this was Labor Day weekend, I think. And, you know, he was there and, you know, full uniform, and it was just wonderful.
I'm right here. What? Hi. No, what?
And it was just that perfect surprise of a mother reunited with her son. And, you know, I'm not a crier, but I can, you know, get a little choked up even thinking about it now. It was just really nice.
Well, absolutely. When you say that, it makes the hair on my arm stand up, because it was really nice to see them reunite. And it's a great moment. Now, like you said, it's hard though to get anything past her. So past your wife. So where did you say you were going when you were really going to the airport to grab your son?
I think I mentioned that I had to get something from the grocery store. It seems to be the only place that we're going to these days. So I think I was like, oh, I have to run out and get something. And I just kind of went out before she could say, oh, we have some of that already, or there's some that I have on the list or whatever. So I just kind of almost like sort of ran out the door. Like,
okay, I just got to get something. I don't know.
I have to go. Yeah.
I'll see you later. All right. And then your final thing is, I think like a lot of us, many of us, just like you and I are doing right now, Zoom and all those versions of Zoom have become kind of a way of life. And in doing this, you started your own TV show of sorts, right?
Yeah. I mean, who would have thought that Zoom would have been holding our whole country together? You know, but
the whole world even.
Yeah, exactly. And not necessarily a TV show, but I just seem to be on a webinar once a week, whether it's something I'm producing or hosting. I mean, very much like this, I you know, certainly had, you know, work in public relations. So I know how a newsroom works, and was, you know, we do a lot of video production. So I understand all of that. But just the idea of producing something like this for yourself every week, and even here at home, I've got some lights set up and all those kind of things. And we've got a green screen. So, you know, I have a new appreciation for what it takes to produce those and just keep those kind of conversations going. And the demand for it's really been remarkable. I think, you know, from a marketing perspective, we're just trying to help businesses figure out changing consumer behaviors or what to do different. So it seems to have been really well received. And it's been kind of a lot of fun, actually. You know, missed my calling, maybe either as a game show host or something like that.
Maybe you need to get into the lineup to try out to be one of the hosts on Jeopardy. We've got Ken Jennings now, right? I think Katie Couric might be on the line, and then it'll be Paul Fahey.
So it's not, I saw that Ken, right, it was Ken, right? I saw that He was on it. So he's not the permanent, they're going to be rotating hosts?
Right, yes. So
Gotcha.
Ken has a little bit of time, and then I think they'll have a few other people to try out. So
I'll send this as a demo.
This is your chance.
Yeah, I'll send this as my demo reel.
Exactly, there you go. All right, perfect. Well, thank you. And now at this point, we're going to play a little game. I'll give you 3 clues to try to guess who will be featured on the Times Union's 20 Things You Don't Know About Me for next week. Normally that would run Monday. Next week it'll run Tuesday because the holiday, Martin Luther King Day is on Monday. So I'll give you 3 clues. You can guess. Viewers and readers can also guess by tweeting me at Just Kristi, tweeting the Times Union, or commenting on this video on the Times Union's Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. All right, so you might get this. We'll see. I grew up on a thoroughbred horse farm in upstate New York. Even though I started mucking stalls at 7 years old, I still learn something new every time I cover the track in Saratoga Springs. Now with this next one, I think we might get a vocabulary lesson too, or at least I got a vocabulary lesson when I read this one. In high school, I suffered from glossophobia. Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay, it's a fear of public speaking. My already rosy cheeks would turn tornado red and the nervous sweats. So how the heck am I able to talk for a living? Well, talking to a camera in an empty studio is a whole different ballgame compared to delivering a book report in front of your high school classmates. Okay, so those are 2 good clues. And the last one, I'm an avid, championship-hungry, unsuccessful fantasy football manager. But despite my team's underwhelming performance this year, I host a weekly podcast called What the Fantasy with Tom Kozlowski and Kyle Ray.
Oh, wow. So you mentioned, the first clue I think mentioned covering the track.
Yeah.
So the only name that comes to mind is like, I think it's Tim Wilkins. Is that it?
Well, I love that you mentioned Tim because Tim is my former colleague. He just retired recently from the Times Union.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not Tim. Tim's amazing, and he would be a great person to feature, but no, it's not Tim.
Yeah, he seems really interesting. And then I know your other colleague, Skip, photographs the track and has been forever, but I don't think he was ever featured on a 20 Things. I think I keep
No, this would be a new person. This we've never featured. And I will give you a clue that this particular person is about a couple generations younger than Tim and Skip.
All right, so now I'm going to think about the regional sports reporters.
Yeah, so go there and take one more guess.
Marissa Jacks. No,
but you're in the right group. It is somebody who's on TV and they report on sports, and you and everyone else can find out Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. Oh, you want to do one more guess? No,
I won't do one more guess. I won't spoil it. But if it's who I'm thinking of, she?
No.
Damn. Oh well. The person I was thinking of
how do we need that buzzer that's like a game show buzzer. You're ready to do a game show now. We need the game show buzzer to play your ball.
You can lay that in as a special effect easily.
I know. We'll have to have Jessica, our producer, try to do that. All right. Thank you so much, Paul. I appreciate your time. And like I said, everybody can check out timesunion.com on Tuesday morning.
This has been great fun. Thank you.